Live from the BDN Studios, it's Bang and Dang.
That's awesome.
If you don't like that, then
You ain't black.
There we go, back again for some more remastered Outlaws and Gunslingers. We made well, you guys don't know, but I guess we'll tell you anyways. We recorded a whole serial killer episode, and we didn't even realize there was 5 Tuesdays this month, which usually we do 2 remastered. So here we are recording Earp Part 2. You know, if you listen to the first part, we went through his childhood, his days of being a pimp and a little wild rascal, his first days as a lawman all the way up to Tombstone and trouble with the Clantons and him messing around with Sheriff Behan's woman. All hell is about to break loose here.
There's one thing about Wyatt. He loved the women. Didn't care if they were with somebody or not, apparently.
Oh, obviously. Well, clearly she didn't care if she was with somebody either. Or he was with somebody too. So
That's true.
I mean, yeah, so if you guys missed out on that, go look at our part 1. We'll lead you all the way up to the day of the, well, we'll do a little bit of a backstory here on this episode, but basically Doc Holliday tried to frame him for a stagecoach robbery that the Behan and his cronies actually were committing, and all hell's about to break loose here in the old O.K. Corral.
Yeah, because I got to his little common law wife all drunked up and spewing lies about Doc because they got into a fight.
Big Nose Kate, and then she was like, sobered up, I don't know, that's not what happened. And then he said, get the hell out of here, woman. This
is a vendetta ride. Some shit's about to happen here. Oh, no, the next one's
O.K. Corral.
Yeah, either way, some shit's about to happen here.
Well, after all this, what's about to happen, Wyatt Earp is going to testify. He's going to testify that after the gunfight, that 5 or 6 weeks prior to the gunfight, he had met Ike Clanton outside the Alhambra Hotel. Ike told Wyatt that Doc Holliday had told him, he said, she said stuff,
right,
that he knew of Ike's meetings with Wyatt and about Ike providing information on Head, Leonard, and Crane, as well as their attempted robbery of the stage. Ike now accused Earp of telling Holliday about these conversations. Earp testified that he told Ike he had not told Holliday anything.
All right, Holliday wasn't even there.
Wyatt offered to prove this when Holliday and the Clantons next returned to town. He said, all right, well, nigga, we'll settle it all.
The weekend before the shootout, Morgan Earp, he was concerned about possible trouble with the Cowboys. He asked Doc Holliday to come back to Tombstone from a fiesta celebration in Tucson, where Holliday had been gambling. He's like, come on, buddy, come on back. Upon Doc's return, Wyatt asked Holliday about Ike's accusation. And you know, Doc Holliday, he's going to tell you straight up. Morning of Tuesday, 25th of October, 1881, the day before the gunfight, Ike Clan, Tom McLaury, they rode 10 miles in the spring wagon from Chandler's Milk Ranch at the foot of the Dragoon Mountains. They did that, and they went to Tombstone. They were in town to sell a large number of beef stock, most of them owned by the McLaurys themselves.
All right, well, Fred Dodge, an undercover detective for Wells Fargo, he heard from J.B. Ayers, another undercover Wells Fargo man in contention, that Frank McLaury, Billy Clanton, and Billy Claiborne, they were in town planning to join Ike and Tom in Tombstone Wednesday afternoon. Dodge, who had been sick, he got up and went looking for City Marshal Virgil.
All right.
He found, instead, Tombstone Deputy City Marshal Morgan at the Alhambra Saloon instead, like I said, and told him the news. Near midnight, Holliday saw Clanton in the Alhambra Saloon and confronted him, accusing him of lying about their previous conversations.
Uh-oh.
Well, they got into a heated argument, and Wyatt, who was not wearing a badge at this time, encouraged his brother Morgan to intervene.
Right, because he couldn't do anything.
Morgan took Holliday out into the street, and Ike, who had been drinking steadily, followed them. Well, Virgil arrived a few minutes later and threatened to arrest both of them if they didn't stop arguing.
Nice. That's the way to go.
I'll take you both to jail, boys.
Right. Wyatt Earp, he walked over to the Oriental Saloon, and Ike followed. They talked again. Ike threatened to confront Holliday in the morning, and we'll settle this once and for all. Ike told Earp that the fight and talk had been going on for a long time, and that he intended to put it to an end. Ike also told Earp, I'll be ready for you in the morning, quote, unquote. Well, Wyatt, he told Ike to go home because there was no money in it. Oh, right.
It's not worth it.
Right. Ike, he sat down near Wyatt, his revolver in plain sight, looked over, told him, you must not think I won't be after you all in the morning. Virgil Earp, he went to the Occidental Saloon across the street.
Well, after Holliday's confrontation with Ike, Wyatt took Holliday back to his room at the C.S. Fly's lodging house to sleep off his drinking. Then he went home and went to bed.
I'm surprised he lived as long as he did, because, man, Holliday would just get couldn't even walk.
He was only 30-something.
Right.
That's what he did, man. Drank until morning and slept until evening.
Right.
Well, Virgil, on the other hand, he stayed up and played poker with Ike, Tom McGlory, Sheriff Johnny Behan, and a fifth unnamed man in the back room of the Occidental Saloon until morning.
Okay.
About dawn, October 26th, the card game broke up, and Behan and Virgil went home to bed. Ike Clanton later testified that he saw Virgil take a six-shooter out of his lap and stick it in his pants when the game ended. Virgil was ready. He said, I'm waiting for any of you to make a move, do it.
Wow.
Virgil's a brave son of a bitch, and they're playing poker with just them.
He always was, dude. It's weird, but he was more level-headed.
Yeah.
Wyatt was just a fucking loose cannon. And Morgan,
Hell's coming with me.
right? And Morgan was just following what everybody else was doing.
Like, what do you want me to do, Wyatt?
Wow. Not having rented a room, old Tom McGlory and Ike Clanton, no place to go. Shortly after 8 a.m., barkeeper E.F. Boyle spoke to Ike. He spoke to him in front of a telegraph office. Clanton been drinking all night, as we said. Boyle encouraged him, go get some sleep, Ike. Go get some sleep. But Ike said, you know what? If I'd had a bed, I would. But guess what I'm going to do now? I'm going to sit here and wait.
Stew in my anger.
Boyle later testified he noticed Ike was armed and covered his gun for him. Boyle later said that Ike told him as soon as those Earps and Doc Holliday showed themselves on the street, the ball would open, that they would have to fight. I went down to Wyatt Earp's house and told him that Ike Clanton had threatened that when Wyatt and his brothers and Doc showed themselves on the street, that the ball would open, quote unquote.
Well, Ike said in his testimony afterward that he remembered neither meeting Boyle nor making any such statements that day. Well, you're fucking wasted.
Back then, they were allowed to blame drunkenness, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, we've seen the Davy Crockett, not that Davy,
Right.
get away with killing 3 soldiers for being drunk.
True. Well,
So Deputy Marshal Andy Bronk, he also heard the talk around town. He went to wake up Virgil, who listened. He said, I'm going back to sleep.
right.
Ike's ongoing threats were not worth losing sleep over, apparently.
Right.
Later in the morning, Ike picked up his rifle and revolver from the West End Corral, where he had deposited him there and stabled his wagon after they entered town earlier. By noon that day, Ike was still drinking and once again armed in violation of the city ordinance against carrying firearms in the city. He told anyone and anybody that would listen that he was looking for Holiday or just any Earp. It didn't matter which one.
Just drunk and
Going around town, said, you know, Earp, they're going to get it.
staggering around. Fire still haven't even come down from the buzz from the night before.
Clearly not.
Wow. At Fly's boarding house, where Holiday and his common law wife, old Big Nose Kate, were sleeping, proprietor Mary Fly heard Clanton's threats and banged on Holiday's door. Fly told Big Nose Kate, Ike Clanton was here looking for Holiday, and he had a rifle with him.
Ooh.
Old Big Nose Kate woke Holiday and relayed the threat, who replied, if God will let me live to get my clothes on, he will see me.
Okay, well,
At about 1 p.m., Marshal Virgil, Deputy Morgan Earp, they found Ike on 4th Street, still armed, still drunk, still pissed. Virgil pistol whipped him from behind. Disarming him, the Earps took Ike to appear before Justice of the Peace, A.O. Wallace,
hey, yo, Wallace,
for violating the very ordinance of not carrying any weapons within town.
you got to do it.
Wyatt waited with Clanton while Virgil went to find Justice Wallace so a court hearing could be held.
Oh, while Wyatt waited for Virgil to return with Justice Wallace, witnesses overheard Wyatt tell Clanton, you cattle thieving son of a bitch, and you know that I know you're a cattle thieving son of a bitch. You've threatened my life enough, and you've got to fight.
Oh.
Ike Clanton was heard to reply, fight is my racket, and all I want is 4 feet of ground.
Oh, okay.
Ike reported in his testimony afterward that Wyatt Earp cursed him. He said Wyatt, Virgil, and Morgan offered him his rifle and to fight him right there in the courthouse, which Ike declined,
Right.
of course. Ike also denied ever threatening the Earps. Yeah, right. Justice Wallace fined Ike $25, which is equivalent to about $7.50 today's money,
Right.
plus court costs. Ike paid the fine, and Virgil told him that he could pick up his confiscated rifle and revolver at the Grand Hotel, which was favored by the Cowboys when in town.
Right.
Ike testified that he picked up the weapons from William Soule, who was the jailer a couple days later.
Yeah, he stewed around. I don't even know if he was in town, though. I think they split town for a minute, but I don't know why you wouldn't take your weapons. Outside the courthouse, where Ike was being fined, Wyatt almost walked into 28-year-old Tom McGlory.
Yeah.
As the two men were brought up short nose to nose. Tom, who had arrived in town the day before, was required by the well-known city ordinance to deposit his pistol when he first arrives in town. When Wyatt demanded, are you healed or not? McGlory said he was not armed. Wyatt testified that he saw a revolver in plain sight on the right hip of Tom's pants. As an unpaid deputy marshal for Virgil, Wyatt habitually carried a pistol in town in his waistband or in a coat pocket lined with leather to make drawing it very much easier.
Well, witnesses reported Wyatt drew his revolver from his coat pocket and pistol whipped McGlory with it twice, leaving him prostrate and bleeding in the street. Saloon keeper Andrew Meehan, there's a Behan and a Meehan in town, huh? They testified at the Spicer hearing, which we'll hear a little bit of later, that he saw McGlory deposit a revolver at the Capitol Saloon sometime between 1 and 2 p.m. After the confrontation with Wyatt, which Meehan also witnessed. Okay. Wyatt said in his deposition afterward that he had been temporarily acting as city marshal for Virgil the week before, while Virgil was in Tucson for the Pete Spence and Frank Stillwell trial. All right. Wyatt said he still considered himself a deputy city marshal, which Virgil later confirmed.
Since Wyatt was an off-duty officer, he could not legally search or arrest Tom for carrying a revolver within the city limit, which is a misdemeanor offense anyway. It's a little fine.
Right.
Only Virgil or one of his city police deputies, including Morgan and possibly Warren Earp, could search him and take any required action. Well, he could have held him there until one of them got there.
Right.
Wyatt, who was portrayed as a non-drinker, testified at the Spicer hearing that he went to Halford's and bought a cigar, went outside to watch the Cowboys.
No, just because I was going to watch the Cowboys.
At the time of the gunfight, about 2 hours later, Wyatt could not even know if Tom was still armed. It was early afternoon by the time Ike and Tom had seen doctors for their head wounds. That's got to piss them off even more. Even if they were just drunk and stupid. The confrontation inside the courthouse with Ike, and then the pistol whipping of Tom outside. Well, I mean, Wyatt just brought it on himself. It was early afternoon by the time Ike and Tom had seen doctors for their head wounds. The day was chilly. Snow still on the ground in some places. Both Tom and Ike had spent the night gambling.
Yes.
Drinking heavily.
Yep.
No sleep. Now they got a headache.
Right.
Now they're both outdoors, both wounded, and at least Ike was still drunk.
Around 1:30 to 2 p.m., after Tom had been pistol whipped by Wyatt, Ike's 19-year-old younger brother Billy and Tom's older brother Frank, they arrived in town. They had heard from their neighbor, Old Man Frank, that Ike had been stirring up trouble in town overnight. They had ridden into town on horseback to back up their brothers.
Right. Not to come get him out of there. Right. What the hell are you doing?
They're like, all right, Ike's setting the stage here. Well, they arrived from Antelope Springs, 13 miles east of Tombstone, where they had been rounding up stock and had breakfasted with Ike and Tom the day before. Both Frank and Billy were armed with a revolver and a rifle, as was the custom for riders in the country outside Tombstone. Apache warriors had engaged the U.S. Army near Tombstone just 3 weeks before the O.K. Corral gunfight.
Oh, shit.
So, obviously, the need for weapons outside of town was well established and accepted.
Damn right.
Of course. They can't tell you what to do outside of town any damn way.
Billy and Frank stopped first at the Grand Hotel on Allen Street. They were greeted by Doc.
Oh, jeez.
They learned immediately after of their brother's beatings by the Earps within the previous 2 hours. Like, damn. The incidents had generated a lot of talk in town. Angrily, Frank said he would not drink, and he and Billy left the saloon immediately to seek Tom. By law, both Frank and Billy should have left their firearms at the Grand Hotel. Instead, guess what? Never left their frickin' holsters.
All right. Oh, Wyatt then said he saw Billy Clanton and Frank McClory in Spangenberger's gun and hardware store on 4th Street filling their gun belts with cartridges. So why are you letting him?
Right.
Ike testified afterward that Tom was not there and that he had tried to buy a new revolver, but the owner saw Ike's bandaged head and refused to sell him one.
Right. Like,
I don't know about that, Ike.
Right.
Well, Ike apparently had not heard Virgil tell him that his confiscated weapons were at the Grand Hotel around the corner from the shop. When Virgil learned that Wyatt was talking to the Cowboys at Spangenberger's gun shop, he went there himself. Virgil then testified afterward that he thought he saw all four men, Ike, Billy, Frank, and Tom, buying cartridges at the same time. They're like, they're all loading up, man.
Wow.
Some shit's about to go down.
Right. Virgil, he went around the corner on Allen Street to the Wells Fargo office, where he picked up a 10-gauge or a 12-gauge shotgun, one of them. It was short and double-barreled. It was unusually cold and windy day in Tombstone. Virgil, he was wearing a long overcoat. To avoid alarming Tombstone's public, Virgil hid that shotgun underneath his coat when he returned to Hafford's saloon. From Spangenberg's, the Cowboys moved to the O.K. Corral, where witnesses overheard them threatening to kill the Earps. For unknown reasons, the old Cowboys then walked out the back of the O.K. Corral and then west, stopping in a narrow, empty lot next to C.S. Fly's boardhouse. So the shootout wasn't even in.
Yes, that's
in the
the
O.K. Corral.
Common myth is in the lot next to the boarding house. Well, Virgil initially avoided a confrontation with the newly arrived Frank McGlory and Billy Clanton.
Right, why stir up more shit?
Who had not yet deposited their weapons, yes. The The statute was not specific about how far a recently arrived visitor might, with good faith and within reasonable time, travel into town while carrying a firearm.
Right.
So they could say, we were going to.
I'd like give him 10 minutes.
Right. This permitted a traveler to keep his firearms if he was proceeding directly to a livery, hotel, or saloon. The three main Tombstone corrals were all west of 4th Street between Allen and Fremont, which were a block or two from where Wyatt saw the Cowboys buying cartridges.
All right.
Miner Reuben F. Coleman later told the Tombstone Epitaph, I was in the OK Corral about 2:30 p.m. when I saw the two Clantons and the two McLaurys in an earnest conversation across the street at Dunbar's Corral. I went up the street and notified Sheriff Behan and told him it was my opinion that they meant trouble and it was his duty as sheriff to go and disarm them.
He's like, man.
I told him that they had gone to the West End Corral. I then went and saw Marshal Virgil Earp and notified him to the same effect.
Okay. Sheriff Behan, a friend of the Cowboys, later testified he woke up about 1:30 p.m. after the late night card game.
Fucking bums, dude.
Yep. And he went to go get a shave at the old barbershop. That's where he first learned that the Cowboys were armed. Behan stated he quickly finished his shave and went to locate the Cowboys. At about 2:30 p.m., he found old Frank McLaury holding a horse and talking to someone on 4th Street near the corner of Fremont. Then he saw Ike Clanton and Tom McLaury near C.S. Fly's photography studio. He walked there with Frank. Told the Cowboys that they must give up their arms. No more trouble today, boys. Ike Clanton said he was not armed. Tom McLaury pulled his coat open to show that he wasn't carrying a weapon either. And that should be enough to satisfy Sheriff Behan, right?
Well, the Cowboys were located in a narrow 15 by 20 feet lot between the Harwood House and Fly's boarding room, or house and photography studio at 312 Fremont Street, where Doc Holliday roomed. Behan later said he attempted to persuade Frank McLaury to give up his weapons, but Frank insisted that he would give up his guns only after Marshal Virgil Earp and his brothers were first disarmed. The Cowboys were about a block and a half from the West End Corral at 2nd Street in Fremont, where Ike and Tom's wagon and team were stabled. Virgil Earp later testified that he thought Ike and Tom were stabled at the OK Corral on Allen between 3rd and 4th,
right,
from which he thought they would be departing if they were leaving town.
Right, that'd be the logical way. Well, Ike, he later said that he was planning to leave town. Get the hell out of there. Take my headache and go sleep it off.
Oh, you might not want to sleep.
All right. Frank McLaury reported that he had decided to remain behind to take care of some business.
Oh.
Will McLaury, Tom and Frank's brother, and also he was a judge in Fort Worth, Texas. He claimed in a letter he wrote during the preliminary hearing that the shootout that Tom and Frank were still armed because they were planning to conduct business before leaving town to visit him in Texas. How the hell would he know?
Why would they need to be armed in town to conduct business?
He wrote that Billy Clanton, who had arrived on horseback with Frank, intended to go with the McLaurys to Fort Worth.
Will McLaury came to Tombstone after the gunfight and joined the prosecution team in an attempt to convict the Earps and Holliday for his brother's murder.
Ooh, they could have done something having a judge.
Paul Johnson told a different story, whoever that is. He said the McLaurys were about to leave for Iowa to attend the wedding of their sister, Sarah.
Oh.
Tom and Frank were especially close to Sarah, who was one of their 14 siblings and half-siblings. Sarah, she married James Reed in Richmond, Iowa, indeed, at the end of November that year, so maybe they were telling the truth.
I think I believe that story. Citizens reported to Virgil on the Cowboys' movements, and their threats told him that Ike and Tom had left their livery stable and entered town while armed, in violation of ordinance once again. Virgil was told by several people that the McLaurys and the Clantons had gathered on Fremont Street. He decided that he had to disarm the Cowboys once and for all and let's end this shit for the day. His decision to take action may have been influenced by the Cowboys' repeated threats to the Earps.
Well, you think?
Their proximity to the Holliday's room and Fly's boarding house, and also their location on the route the Earps usually took to their homes 2 blocks further west on Fremont Street. So either way, you have to go past these sons of bitches.
You got to take care of the threat. Several members of the Citizens Vigilance Committee offered to support him with arms, but Virgil refused. He had, during the prior month, appointed Morgan as a special policeman. He also appointed Wyatt as a special policeman, while Virgil, yes, we know, was away. He also called on Doc Holliday that morning for help with disarming the Clantons and McLaurys. That is a hell of a thing for you to say to me.
Right.
Wyatt spoke of his brothers Virgil and Morgan as the marshals, while he acted as deputy.
Right.
Virgil Earp picked up the shotgun he had retrieved from the Wells Fargo office earlier. He gave the shotgun to Doc, who hid it under his overcoat. He then took Holliday's walking stick in return. Well,
as usual, the Earps carried the revolvers in their coat pockets or in their waistbands. Wyatt, he was carrying a .44 caliber American 1869 Smith & Wesson revolver. Holliday carrying a nickel-plated pistol in a holster, but this was concealed by his long coat, as was also the shotgun. Earps and Holliday walked west, down the south side of Fremont Street. past the rear entrance to the OK Corral, but out of the visual range of the Cowboys, which they believe where they were last reported. Near the corner of 4th Street and Fremont Street, the Earps ran into Sheriff Behan. He had left the Cowboys and came toward them, though he looked nervously backwards several times, and he knew some shit.
Right.
Virgil, he testified afterward that Behan told him, "For God's sake, don't go down there or they will murder you." Wyatt said Behan told him and Morgan that I have disarmed them, which he lied. Or one of these guys was lying. Behan testified afterward that he only said he had gone down to the Cowboys for the purpose of disarming them, not that he actually did.
So why didn't you?
Wow.
Fucking sheriff, dude. One eyewitness, laundryman Peter Fallahy, he wrote in his testimony afterward that Virgil told Behan, "Those men have made their threats, and I will not arrest them, but I will kill them on sight."
Right, there's only so much
No,
you
he
do.
didn't say that. Sorry.
Right, but I'm saying that's got to be his thinking. I'm going to have to kill these sons of bitches.
Maybe.
Because they're not going to stop.
Well, when Behan said he had disarmed them, Virgil attempted to avoid a fight.
Uh-oh.
Okay. He said, "I had a walking stick in my left hand, and my hand was on my 6-shooter in my waist pants. And when he said he had disarmed them, I shoved it clean around my left hip and changed my walking stick to my right hand."
Oh.
Wyatt said, "I took my pistol, which I had in my hand, under my coat and put it in my overcoat pocket."
All right.
The Earps then walked further down Fremont Street and came into full view of the Cowboys in the lot.
All right, let's see here. Wyatt, he testified he saw Frank McLaury, Tom McLaury, and Billy Clanton standing in a row against the side of the building.
The east side of the building.
On the east side of the building, on the opposite side of the vacant space west of Fly's photograph gallery. You had Ike and Billy Claiborne and a man I don't even know, Wes Fuller, I suppose. They were standing in the vacant space about halfway between the photograph gallery and the next building west. Addie Borland corroborated with Wyatt's testimony, stating that he saw 5 men opposite my house, leaning against a small house west of Fly's gallery, and one man was holding a horse, standing a little out from the house.
Martha J. King was in Bauer's Butcher Shop located on Fremont Street. She testified that when Earp party passed by her location, one of the Earps on the outside of the group looked across and said to Doc Holliday nearest the store, "Let them have it." To which Holliday replied, "All right." When the Earps approached the lot, the 4 lawmen initially faced 6 Cowboys: Frank McLaury, Tom McLaury, Billy Clanton, Billy Claiborne, Wes Fuller, and Ike Clanton. When the Cowboys saw the officers, they stepped away from the Hardwood house.
Ooh, knowing shit's about to go down. Well, testimony given by witnesses afterward, they disagreed about the precise location of the men before, and during, and after the gunfight.
Yeah, man.
Coroner's inquest and the Spicer hearing produced a sketch showing the Cowboys standing from left to right, facing Fremont Street, with Billy Clanton and then Frank McLaury near the Hardwood house, and Tom McLaury and Ike Clanton roughly in the middle of the lot, opposite them, and initially only about 6-10 feet away. Then you had Virgil Earp, who was on the left of the Earp party, standing about a few feet inside the vacant lot and nearest to Ike.
Behind him, a few feet near the corner of C.S. Fly's boarding house, was Wyatt. Morgan Earp was standing on Fremont Street to Wyatt's right. Doc Holliday anchored the end of their line on Fremont Street a few feet to Morgan's right. So you had Virgil and Holliday as the flanks.
Right.
Wyatt drew a sketch in 1924 and another with John Flood on September 15, 1926 that depicted Billy Clanton near the middle of the lot, close to the Hardwood house.
He's old.
Right.
Getting names mixed up.
Tom and Frank McLaury stood deeper in the lot, and Frank was in the center between the 2 buildings holding the reins of his horse. Tom was closer to the Fly's boarding house, and according to Wyatt's sketches, Morgan was on the right of the lawmen, close to the Hardwood house, opposite Billy Clanton near the Hardwood house, and close to Fremont Street.
Oh.
Virgil was deeper in the lot, opposite Frank and Ike Clanton.
Right.
Wyatt was to Virgil's left, opposite Tom, and Doc, he hung back a step or 2 on Fremont Street. Either way, they're all there.
Right.
Neither of Wyatt's sketches included Ike Clanton or Billy Claiborne, who ran from the fight anyways.
Yeah. Wow. Virgil, he was not expecting a fight. Once Behan said that he disarmed the Cowboys, Virgil traded the short, double-barreled shotgun he was carrying for Holliday's cane.
I did that before then, but...
Right. Virgil carried the cane in his right hand and shifted the pistol in his waistband. We said that to the left. Holliday, he concealed that shotgun under his long jacket. Wyatt, too, was not expecting a fight.
Yes, we know.
Right. Billy Clanton and Frank McLaury, they wore revolvers and holsters on their belts, and they stood alongside their saddled horses with rifles in their scabbards, possibly in violation of city ordinance prohibiting carrying weapons in town. Not possibly.
Well, technically, their horse is carrying a weapon. When Virgil saw the Cowboys, he testified that he immediately commanded the Cowboys to throw up your hands, I want your guns. Wyatt said Virgil told the Cowboys, throw up your hands, I have come to disarm you.
Okay.
Virgil and Wyatt both testified they saw Frank McGlory and Billy Clanton draw and cock their single-action 6-shot revolvers. Virgil yelled, "Hold, I don't mean that," or "Hold on, I don't want that."
Right.
Either or, he didn't want it.
Right.
Jeff Morey, who served as a historical consultant on the film Tombstone, he compared testimony by partisan and neutral witnesses, and he came to the conclusion that the Earps described the situation accurately.
Right. Who started shooting first? Not certain. Counts by both participants and eyewitnesses are contradictory. The smoke from the black powder used in the weapons added to the confusion of the gunfight in such a narrow space.
Yeah, what are you going to do, man?
Those loyal to one side or the other told conflicting stories, and independent eyewitnesses who did not know the participants by sight were unable to say for certain who shot first. 6 or 7 men with guns fired about 30 shots in around 30 seconds.
That's crazy. Basically.
Damn.
Crazy. Virgil Earp reported afterwards 2 shots went right off together. Billy Clanton's is one of them. Wyatt testified, "Billy Clanton leveled his pistol at me, but I did not aim at him. I knew that Frank McGlory had the reputation of being a good shot and a dangerous man, and I aimed at Frank."
Right.
He said he shot Frank after both he and Billy Clanton went for their revolvers. The first 2 shots were fired by Billy Clanton and myself. He shooting at me, and I shooting at Frank.
I mean, I think that's justified.
Morey agreed that Billy Clanton and Wyatt Earp fired first. Clanton missed, but Earp, he shot Frank right in the stomach.
Ooh, belly shot.
He did.
Right. All witnesses generally agreed that the first 2 shots were almost indistinguishable from each other. General firing immediately broke out. Virgil, Wyatt, thought Tom was armed. When the shooting started, the horse that Tom McGlory held jumped to one side. Wyatt said he also saw Tom throw his hand to his right hip. Virgil said Tom followed the horse's movement, hiding behind it, and fired once or twice over the horse's back.
Well, according to one witness, Holliday drew a large bronze pistol, interpreted by some as Virgil's coach gun, from under his long coat, stepped around Tom McGlory's horse, and shot him with a double-barreled shotgun in the chest at close range. Witness C.H. Ham Light, he saw Tom running or stumbling westward on Fremont Street towards 3rd Street, away from the gunfight, while Frank and Billy were still standing and shooting. Light testified that Tom fell at the foot of a telegraph pole on the corner of Fremont and 3rd Street, and he lay there without moving through the duration of the fight.
Damn.
Fallahy also saw Tom stagger across the street until he fell on his back. After shooting Tom, Holliday tossed the empty shotgun aside, pulled out his nickel-plated revolver, and continued to fire at Frank and Billy.
Damn, wow. Well, at this time, Ike had been publicly threatening to kill the Earps for several months, including very loud threats on the day before, as we said. Wyatt told the court afterward that Clanton had bragged that he would kill the Earps or Doc at his first opportunity. But when the gunfight broke out, Ike, he ran forward and grabbed Wyatt, exclaiming that he was unarmed and did not want to fight. To this protest, Wyatt said in response, "Go to fighting or get away." Clanton ran through the front door of Fly's boarding house and escaped unwounded. Other accountants say that Ike drew a hidden pistol and fired at the Earps before disappearing. Like Ike, Billy Claiborne, he was also unarmed. He and cowboy Wes Fuller, who had been at the rear of the lot, also ran from the fight as soon as the shooting began.
According to the Tombstone epitaph, Wyatt Earp stood up and fired in rapid succession, as cool as a cucumber, and was not hit. Morgan Earp fired almost immediately as Billy Clanton drew his gun right-handed. Morgan's shot hit Billy in the right wrist, disabling his hand. Forced to shift the revolver to his left hand, Clanton continued shooting until he emptied the gun. Virgil and Wyatt were now firing. Morgan tripped and fell over a new buried water line and fired from the ground.
Oh, shit.
Wyatt shot Frank in the stomach, and Frank took his horse by its reins and struggled across Fremont Street.
Son of a bitch. They're like, damn, this doesn't turn out how we thought.
Right.
He tried and he failed to grab his rifle from the scabbard, but lost control of the horse. Frank crossed Fremont Street, firing his revolver instead. Frank and Doc exchanged shots as Frank moved across Fremont, and Frank hit Holliday in his pistol pocket, grazing him. Holliday, he followed him, exclaiming, "That son of a bitch has shot me, and I'm going to kill him." Morgan, he picked himself up and also fired at Frank. Frank fell to the sidewalk on the east side of Fremont Street. A number of witnesses observed a man leading a horse into the street and firing near it, and Wyatt, in his testimony, thought this was Tom McGlory. Claiborne said only one man had a horse in the fight, and that this man was Frank, holding his own horse by the reins, and then losing it in its cover, in the middle of the street. Wes Fuller also identified Frank as the man in the street leading the horse.
All right. Well, though wounded, Billy Clanton and Frank McGlory kept shooting. One of them, perhaps Billy, shot Morgan Earp across the back in a wound that struck both shoulder blades and a vertebrae.
Damn.
Morgan went down for a minute before picking himself up. Either Frank or Billy shot Virgil in the calf. Virgil says, I think it was Billy. Virgil, though hit, fired his next shot at Billy. Frank, now entirely across Fremont Street and still walking at a good pace, which is according to Claiborne's testimony, he fired twice more before he was shot in the head under his right ear.
Son of a bitch. Both Morgan and Doc apparently thought they had fired that kill shot. But since neither of them testified at the hearing, this information is only from secondhand accounts. Passerby testified to having stopped to help Frank and saw Frank try to speak, but he died where he fell before he could even move or get a word out. Damn. Billy Clanton, he was shot in the wrist, chest, abdomen, and after a minute or two, he slumped to a sitting position near his original position at the corner of the Harwood house. This was in the lot between the house and Fly's lodging house. Claiborne said Clanton was supported by a window initially after he was shot, fired a few more shots after sitting, and he had a pistol that was supported on his leg. After he ran out of ammo, he called for more cartridges, but C.S. Fly took his pistol at about the time the general shooting ended. He's like, no more for you, bud. It's over.
A few moments later, Tom McGlory was carried from the corner of Fremont and 3rd into the Harwood house on that corner where he died without speaking.
Wow.
Passers-by carried Billy Clanton to the Harwood house where Tom had been taken. Billy was in considerable pain and asked for a doctor and some morphine. He told those near him, "They have murdered me. I have been murdered. Chase the crowd away and from the door and give me some air." Billy gasped for air, and someone else heard him say, "Go away and let me die." Ike Clanton, who had repeatedly threatened the Earps with death, was still running. William Cuddy, he testified that Ike had passed him on Allen Street, and Johnny B. Hand saw him a few minutes later on Tough Nut Street.
He's gone.
Jeez, dude.
Damn.
All right, both Wyatt and Virgil believed Tom McGlory was armed and testified that he had fired at least one shot over the back of a horse. Billy Clanton and Frank McGlory, they exchanged gunfire with the lawman. During the fight, Doc Holliday was bruised by a bullet fired by Frank that struck his holster and grazed his hip. Virgil Earp was shot through the calf, he thought by Billy Clanton. Morgan, he was struck across both shoulder blades, like we said, by a bullet. Well, Morgan, he thought Frank was the one that shot him.
Right.
Of course.
Well, as usual, the one that's starting all this shit, Wyatt Earp, was unscathed. Tom McGlory, his brother Frank, and Billy Clanton murdered.
Done.
As the wounded lawmen were carried to their homes, they passed in front of the sheriff's office. Johnny Behan told Wyatt, "I will have to arrest you." Wyatt paused 2 or 3 seconds, and he replied very forcibly, "I won't be arrested today. I'm right here, and I'm not going away. You have deceived me. You told me these men were disarmed. I went to disarm them." Dr. George Goodfellow, good for him. He's a Georgia Goodfellow.
You told me they were disarmed. I went to disarm them. So why would you go to disarm them if you already thought they were disarmed?
Yeah, that doesn't make no sense. Dr. George Goodfellow, he treated the Earps.
Dr. Henry Matthews, he examined the dead cowboys late that night. He found Frank had 2 wounds, a gunshot beneath the right ear that horizontally penetrated his head, and a second entering his abdomen 1 inch to the left of his navel.
Damn.
Matthews stated that the wound beneath the ear was at the base of the brain and caused instant death.
Obviously.
Sheriff Behan later testified that he had heard Morgan Earp yell, "I got him," after Frank was shot. However, during the fight, Frank moved across Fremont, putting Holliday on Frank's right and Morgan on his left.
Right.
This makes it much more likely that old Doc shot the fatal round that shot down old Frankie.
Yep, makes sense there. Well, he also examined Tom McGlory's body. He found 12 buckshot wounds from a single shotgun blast on the right side under his arm, between the 3rd and 5th ribs.
Ooh, would that mean his arms are up? Obviously.
And shooting.
Or shooting, right?
The wound was about 4 inches across. Nature and location of the wound.
That is a small spatter.
Yeah, that means he was close.
Jeez.
Then a good time for that buckshot to spread out. The wound was about 4 inches across, as I said. Nature and location of the wound indicated that it could not have been received if Tom's hands were on his coat lapels, as the Cowboys later testified. Yeah, there's no way it would have hit his arms.
Right.
Both Virgil and Wyatt stated that Holliday had shot Tom, which the coroner's exam supported. Dr. George Goodfellow, he testified that Billy Clanton's wounds at the Spicer hearing. He stated that the angle of the wrist wound indicated that Billy's hand could not have been raised over his head, as claimed by cowboy witnesses.
In his coroner's report, Matthews did not mention Billy's arm wound, but witness Keefe, who examined the arm closely, he testified later that Clanton was shot through the right arm close to the wrist joint, and the bullet passed through the arm from inside to outside, entering the arm close to the base of the thumb and exiting on the back of the wrist diagonally. So, yeah, he had him had his hand up, shooting.
Well.
with the latter wound larger than the other.
Right. Point of entry smaller.
Right. This indicated to the judge that Billy could not have been holding his coat lapels open, his arms raised as the Cowboys testified.
Not at all. Nope. Dr. Matthews, he found 2 other wounds on Billy's body. The first was 2 inches from Clanton's left nipple. Penetrated his lung. Ooh. The other was in the abdomen beneath the 12th rib, 6 inches to the right of the navel. Both were fired from the front. Neither passed completely through his body. The wound to Billy Clanton's right wrist may have been inflicted by Morgan Earp or even Doc immediately at the outset of the fight as Billy was drawing his gun.
Possible. The bodies of the 3 dead Cowboys were displayed in a window at Ritter and Reams Undertakers with a sign that said, "Murdered in the streets of Tombstone." Damn. The funerals for Billy Clanton, he was only 19 years old. Tom McLaury, he was 28, and his brother Frank, 33, were well attended. About 300 people joined the procession to Boot Hill, and as many as 2,000 watched from the sidewalk. Both McLaurys were buried in the same grave, and Billy Clanton was buried nearby.
The story was widely printed in newspapers across the whole United States of America. Most versions favored the lawman. The headline in San Francisco Exchange was "A Good Riddance." 3 days after the shootout, the ruling of the coroner's jury convened by Dr. Henry Matthews neither condemned nor exonerated the lawman for the shooting of the Cowboys. It read this: William Clanton, Frank and Thomas McLaury came to their deaths in the town of Tombstone on the 26th of October, 1881, from the effects of pistol and gunshot wounds inflicted by Virgil Earp, Morgan Earp, Wyatt Earp, and one Holiday, commonly called Doc Holiday.
Ike Clanton filed murder charges against the Earps and Holiday on October 30th. Wyatt and Doc were arrested and brought before Justice of the Peace Wells Spicer. Morgan and Virgil, they were still recovering at home. Only Wyatt and Holiday were required to post a $10,000 bail, which is equivalent to $320,000 today, which was paid by their attorney Thomas Fitch, a local mine owner E.B. Gage, Wells Fargo undercover agent Fred Dodge, and other business owners appreciative of the Earps' effort to maintain order.
Right.
Good for you guys. Virgil, he was suspended as town marshal pending the outcome of the trial.
Yeah, you got to do that. Justice Wells Spicer, he convened a preliminary hearing on the 31st of October to determine whether enough evidence existed to even go to trial. In an unusual proceeding, he took written and oral testimony from about 30 witnesses over more than a month. The prosecution was led by Republican District Attorney Littleton Price, assisted by John M. Murphy, James Robinson, and Ben Goodrich. They were joined by William McLaury, Frank and Tom's older brother. He was also an able attorney who played a key role on the prosecutor's team. The Earps' attorney, Thomas Fitch, he was an experienced trial lawyer and had earned a reputation as the silver-tongued orator of the Pacific.
All right, you got their version of Johnny Cochran, huh?
Right.
Sheriff Johnny Behan, he testified on the 3rd day of the hearing. During his 2 days on the stand, he gave strong testimony that the Cowboys had not resisted, but either threw up their hands and turned out their coats to show they were not armed. Behan's views turned public opinion against the Earps, who were free on bail. He and other prosecution witnesses testified that Tom, he was unarmed, Billy had his hands in the air, and that neither of the McLaurys were troublemakers. Okay. They portrayed Ike Clanton and Tom McLaury as being unjustly bullied and beaten by the vengeful Earps on the day of the gunfight.
All right.
On the strength of the prosecution case, Spicer revoked the bail for Doc and Wyatt, and he threw them back in jail November 7th.
No shit.
There, they spent the next 16 days.
Wow.
That's not talked about.
No. All right. Well, defense accounts contradicted the testimony of Behan, Claiborne, and Allen, who all said that a man had fired a nickel-plated pistol first. I'm trying to get Doc
Like they wouldn't know who that man was,
Right.
first of all.
Claiborne and Allen both said it was Holiday. Virgil, Wyatt, and other witnesses testified that Holiday was carrying a shotgun. Morgan remained bedridden throughout the trial and did not testify because he's still nursing.
He got shot in his shoulder blades.
Right. The prosecution scenario would have required Holiday to fire with his pistol first, switch to the shotgun to shoot Tom McLaury,
Right.
then switch back again to the pistol, then continue firing.
And that wasn't happening.
No, not that quick amount of time.
30 seconds, right? Well, Wyatt testified that he drew his gun only after Clanton and McLaury went for their pistols. He detailed the Earps' previous troubles with the Clantons and McLaurys. He explained he had intended to disarm the Cowboys and that his party had fired in self-defense.
Right.
Fitch, he produced contradictory testimony from the prosecution witnesses during cross-examination.
Right.
Or they appeared to dodge his questions or said that they couldn't even remember.
Yeah, get out of here. You remember.
Right. Pepper's Farm does, too.
Yeah. 3 witnesses gave key evidence that swayed Justice Spicer to hold that Virgil had acted within his capacity as town marshal. and that there was insufficient evidence to even indict the Earps and Holiday for Moida. H.F. Sills, he was an AT and SF railroad engineer who had arrived in town just prior and knew none of his parties involved.
Okay, so he's an impartial
Right.
witness.
He testified that he said he saw the marshal go up and speak to this other party. I saw them pull out their revolvers immediately. The marshal had a cane in his right hand at the time. He throwed up his hand and spoke. I did not hear the words, though. By that time, Billy Clanton and Wyatt Earp had fired their guns off. So what?
That's him saying, I don't want that.
We don't want, or we're not here for that, or some shit. Okay, so that does that. And so that's what H.F. Sills said. I mean, that's pretty compelling evidence right there.
But
Well, then he was grilled by the prosecution. He corroborated virtually all the defense's testimony.
good for him, huh? Addie Borland, we spoke of her a little bit ago. She was a dressmaker whose residence was across Fremont Street from Fly's boarding house. She testified she saw both sides facing each other. None of the cowboys held their hands up. That the firing was general, and that she had not seen Billy Clanton fall immediately, as the cowboys had testified. Judge J.H. Lucas of the probate court had offices in the Mine and Exchange building about 200 feet from the shootout. He corroborated Addie Borland's testimony that Billy was standing throughout the fight, which contradicted prosecution witnesses who maintained he went down immediately after being shot in the belly. Spicer noted that no powder burns were found on his clothing, so you couldn't have been that close.
These witnesses' testimony, especially that of H.F. Sills, a disinterested party in the matter, he discredited much of the testimony given by Sheriff Behan. This guy.
It's a sheriff,
Right.
lying on the stand.
Right. Also, Ike Clanton, and he's running down the street.
Right.
And other cowboy witnesses. After hearing all the evidence, Justice Spicer, he ruled on the 30th of November that Virgil, as the lawman in charge, had acted within his office and that there was not enough evidence to indict the men.
Yep.
He described Frank McLaury's insistence that he would not give up his weapons unless the marshal and his deputies also gave up their arms as a proposition both monstrous and startling.
Right.
Are you kidding me?
They're officers and you're not.
Right. You're gonna try to disarm deputies of the law?
Well, he noted that the prosecution claimed the cowboys' purpose was to leave town, yet Ike and Billy, they did not have their weapons with them, so how are they going to leave?
Right.
Spicer noted the doctor who examined the dead cowboys established that the wounds they received could not have occurred if their hands and arms had been in the positions that prosecution witnesses described.
Right.
Spicer did not condone all of the Earp's actions and criticized Virgil's use of Wyatt and Holiday as deputies, but he used these two hot-headed knuckleheads. But he concluded that no laws were broken. He said the evidence indicated the Earps and Holiday acted within the law, and that Holiday and Wyatt had been properly deputized by Virgil.
Oh, look at that shit. I mean, all you gotta do is just go through it piece by piece, and you will find the truth.
Right.
A hand-drawn sketch of the gunfight was made by John Flood with Wyatt's assistance, 15th December, 1921. Sold in an auction in October 2010 for about $380,000.
That's crazy.
Wow. The map describes the position of a number of witnesses and all the participants, with the exception of Ike Clanton, who fled from the gunfight, which was 1952. Victor Clyde Forsyth, a popular painter of desert scenes and cowboy artist, he painted the gunfight at the O.K. Corral, a 43 by 60 inch oil painting. Forsyth's father, William Bowen Forsyth, and Uncle Ira Chandler, they owned a store, Chandler and Forsyth, COD, at 328 Fremont Street, west of the back entrance to the O.K. Corral, and about a half a block from the site of the gunfight.
Oh, awesome.
Good for him.
Well, they claimed that they had been present and witnessed the shooting, or shootout. Newspaper accounts of the painting reported that Forsyth had interviewed Tombstone residents and examined many of the existing buildings before beginning to plan his painting. Okay. May 1988, his studio printed and sold a limited edition 390 copies of the painting.
Fantastic.
John Gilcrease, he became friends with John Flood, who had been Wyatt Earp's secretary, confidant, and best friend for many years.
Nice.
When Earp died, Flood inherited many of his personal belongings.
Aw, look at that. Good for him. He in turn willed them to Gilcrease, who amassed over a number of years one of the largest collections of personal items belonging to Wyatt and Virgil Earp. And he also had many unpublished photos of them and their family. Then he opened the Wyatt Earp Museum in Tombstone. That was 1966. And he also commissioned Western artist Don Percival to paint the gunfight at the O.K. Corral. The oil on masonite painting titled The Street Fight. It's about 6 foot 4 inches by 4 feet 0 inches. Damn. By 4, just say by 4 feet.
Right.
It is the largest work ever executed by Percival. He referred to the original documents in Gilcrease's collection, including Wyatt Earp's own diagram of the shootout and unpublished notes made by John Flood, to create what is regarded as the most accurate depiction of the O.K. Corral shootout.
He had 500 lithograph prints reproduced from the original, which Percival signed.
Fantastic.
The prints were sold by the museum for $10, which is equivalent to $94 today.
Great.
After Gilcrease closed his museum, the painting and other contents of the museum, they were sold at auction by John's Western Gallery of San Francisco. Estimated auction price for the painting had been $200,000 to $300,000. The final price was $40,250.
Okay.
That's what it sold for.
Oh, wow. So that guy was pretty wrong on his estimate, huh?
It was put up for sale for auction June 14, 2014, with an estimated selling price of $40,000 to $60,000, but failed to sell. Why?
Less than a month after the shootout, it was described by a local newspaper as the gunfight at the O.K. Corral. William Breckenridge.
Not the painting,
the actual
the
gunfight.
event.
William Breckenridge, in his 1928 book, El Dorado, Bringing Law to the Mesquite, described it as the incident near the O.K. Corral.
It's more accurate.
Stuart Lake, he titled his chapter about the conflict at the O.K. Corral in his popular book, Wyatt Earp, Frontier Marshal. But it was in the popular movie Gunfight at the O.K. Corral that cemented the incident and its erroneous location in the popular consciousness.
The movie and accompanying mythologizing also altered the way that public thought of the Earps and the Outlaws.
All right.
Prior to the movie, the media often criticized the Earps' actions in Tombstone.
Oh.
In the movies, they became the good guys, always ready to stand for what is right.
Right.
This incident has become a fixture in American history due to the personal nature of the feud between the Earps and the McGlory and Clanton brothers.
Right.
And the symbolism of the fight between lawmen and cowboys.
You know, the Earps are obviously more of a good guy in it or not, but man, Wyatt and Virgil were kind of troublemakers.
Virgil?
Especially Wyatt.
How would you say Virgil?
Virgil it was.
All he did was go to the army and literally was a lawman his whole life.
Yeah. Didn't he pistol whip somebody too?
Yeah, because he was being drunk and belligerent. He had a right to do that.
Well, I guess, yeah. But Wyatt, if any of them, Wyatt was just a little hothead.
Well, I mean, pimp's got to do what a pimp's got to do.
This whole situation could have been avoided if they weren't antagonizing them in the courthouse. Wyatts were antagonizing Ike and them in the courthouse, and then Wyatt goes and frickin' pistol whips the McClary guy, right? Mm-hmm. So there's that.
Clearly, if it didn't happen that day, it was happening soon after anyways.
Right, I had to take care of it. They should have just went outside of town and took care of business there.
Should have just followed them outside of town one night and just murked them and then came back like nothing ever happened.
Right.
Then he wouldn't be famous.
Nope.
The town of Tombstone has capitalized on interest in the gunfight. A portion of the town is a historical district that has been designated a historic landmark and is listed in the National Register of Historic Places by the U.S. National Park Service. A local company produces daily theatrical reenactments of that gunfight.
Daily?
Daily.
Damn.
I mean, it's Tombstone, man.
How many people go to Tombstone every day?
A lot. Meanwhile, though, after the gunfight, the Earps and Holiday were free, but their reputations had been tarnished. Cowboys and Tombstones looked upon the Earps as robbers and murderers and plotted revenge.
Right.
Virgil, he was ambushed December 28th while walking between saloons on Allen Street in Tombstone. He was maimed by a shotgun blast which struck his left arm and shoulder.
Damn.
Ike Clanton's hat was found in the back of the building across Allen Street from where the shots were fired.
Mm-hmm. You know he was coming back.
Wyatt, he wired U.S. Marshal Crawley P. Dake, asking to be appointed Deputy U.S. Marshal with authority to select his own deputies. He granted the request in late January and provided the Earps with some funds that he borrowed from Wells Fargo, variously reported as between $500 and $3,000. So,
wow.
That's a lot.
In mid-January, Earp's ally, Rickaball, he sold the Oriano Saloon to Earp's adversary, Milt Joyce, whoever that guy is. So Wyatt sold his gambling concessions at the hotel. The Earps also raised some funds from sympathetic business owners in town as well. Wyatt and Virgil submitted the resignations to Dake on February 2nd, 1882. So that didn't last long. Being tired of the criticism leveled against him, but he refused to accept them because their accounts had not been settled.
Oh, it's saying, like, go take care of your business, boys?
Right. On that very same day, Wyatt sent a message to Ike Clanton that he wanted to reconcile the differences, which Clanton refused. He's like, sure you do, bud.
Right.
I don't think so. Clanton, he was also acquitted that day of the charges against him in the shooting of Virgil, when the defense brought in 7 witnesses who testified that Clanton was in Charleston at the time of the shooting. A man don't leave his hat behind. Sorry. Not back then. Not back then.
Well, the Earps needed more funds to pay for the extra deputies and associated expenses, his contributions from supportive business owners were not enough. February 13th, Wyatt mortgaged his home to lawyer James G. Howard for $365, which is about $9,670 today. He was never able to repay the loan, and Howard foreclosed on the house in 1884.
Wow.
Or he just didn't give a shit.
Right, didn't care. Morgan Earp murdered March 18th while playing billiards, shot by gunmen firing from a dark alley through a door window into the billiard room. He was struck in the right side. The bullet shattered his spine, passed through his left side, and lodged in the thigh of George A.B. Barry, while another round narrowly missed him. Damn. Doctor was summoned, and Morgan was moved from the floor to a nearby couch, while the murderers escaped in the dark. He died about 40 minutes later.
Jeez.
Oh, Wyatt, he felt that he could not rely on civil justice and decided to take matters into his own hands. He had to kill the murderers himself.
Yes, sure.
Bum, bum, bum.
And you all know what's going to happen on the next episode. Yeah, next week we'll be covering that decision to take matters into his own hands and kill the murderers himself, as it's the infamous Earp Vendetta ride.
They killed old Morgan.
We already know.
Oh, Wyatt was basically Morgan's daddy, all grown up.
We already know what happens there. Did Doc Holliday kill Johnny Ringo, or did he suicide himself? We'll find out. Actually, nobody really knows still. But yeah, we'll have it all. He hunts down everybody. And then, obviously part 4 will be after that, and he's retired over to, he's trying to be a miner now. He goes all over the place. Las Vegas, Alaska, goes to Hollywood, does some shit, so.
Crazy.
That's the OK Corral shootout.
Earp and his posse.
Earp and his posse. We'll be back next week for serial killers, which we covered they call him the butcher baker.
The butcher baker.
Where he was, speaking of Alaska, where some accounts say that, or he even claims that he would strip the girls naked and make them run into the woods, and he'd hunt them down like dogs or bears or whatever you want to call them. But he was a pretty sick guy. So it was the baker butcher Robert Hansen.
Robert Hansen with an E.
Yeah, Hansen with an E. So we'll have that next week, and then right back into the Mafia the next week. Well, we'll be officially with the Mafia starting off the new year. New year, same Mafia, baby. Yeah, so we'll see you then. Merry Christmas. This will be a Christmas Eve for all you guys that are listening. So, okay, bye. Well, mother's gonna do it.
Bang, dang.